Hello and welcome back. It is Intro to Python here on Cybrary On Demand with your instructor, Joe Perry, and this is going to be Lesson 5, where we're going to talk about the programming basics of while loops. So in the last lesson, we discussed for loops. We discussed the concept of looping, of implementing a piece of logic that's going to be used over and over again. In this lesson, we're going to take that same general concept and we're going to use it to understand while loops. We're going to also understand the relationship between while loops, if statements, and for loops. So remember from the last lesson that for loops repeat a given sequence until a condition is met. While loops do the exact same thing. The distinction that really is most important is that what while loops do is that they just evaluate some ongoing phenomenon, some ongoing condition. It can be used the same way as a for loop, but often it's used for other purposes. An example here is, while it is dark outside, tint the computer screen red. If that's confusing to you, there are a lot of applications that do that because it's better for your eyesight, and if you're someone like me who spends all day staring at a computer screen, you're going to take every little bit you can get. But the idea here, like I said, is that while loops are used to implement against an ongoing phenomenon, an ongoing condition. So oftentimes when you write a program that's intended to have user input, for example, the internet, or for example, or an internet browser rather, not the internet, or a word processor, or really most of the applications you use day to day. Generally speaking, somewhere inside of those applications, there's what we call the core loop, which is just a simple while loop that is waiting for signals and processing those signals based on your input. Now, signal handling can get kind of complex, and we're not going to talk about that actually at all in this particular class. That's going to come up during intermediate and advanced Python, however, and we'll talk about it pretty extensively then. The point that I'm making here is that while loops are often used for infinite loops or used for loops that are intended to last for a very long time. So while x is less than 10, print and then increment x. Now you can see that this does the same thing that a for loop would have done, but the difference here, one, is that we're implementing the increment ourselves. That's not happening in the while loop. It's not happening in the internal logic of Python. The other thing that's important to note here is that instead of using for, where we're going to evaluate for each item, what's actually happening here is just that we're repeatedly evaluating the x is less than 10, and it doesn't necessarily change. Like I said, you can have an infinite while loop, and it's entirely possible to construct a while loop where you just don't increment the x, or you don't increment whatever value, or you don't change whatever signal, and therefore the while loop just keeps executing. So while x is less than 10, we're going to print it and we're going to increment it. So of course we're going to set x equal to 0 at the beginning. This is a case with while loops where you will have to usually assign an initial value. For loops, Python can often do that for you based on the information. While loops, you usually have to do it yourself. So x is less than 10. That is a true statement. So we're going to print it, we're going to increment it. And then we're just going to repeat those steps, looping exactly the same way we did with for loops, changing the information, performing logic, and then evaluating. Until finally x equals 10, which in this case we were only looking for while x is less than 10, and we're going to say that is false. Obviously 10 equals 10, it is not less than. And so we're going to end our execution. We're going to give back control to whatever code comes next, whatever part of Python code or whatever part of your module is happening next. Another example here that kind of demonstrates a difference, x equals the letter A. And this is totally pseudocode, this wouldn't work in Python the way it's written, but while x is not equal to z, the exclamation mark equal sign is it's a symbol, thank you, I lost the word. It is a symbol in Python, which means not equal to, the logical inversion of equal to. So while x is not equal to z, x equals the next letter. Then outside of this while loop, as its own instruction, we say print x. Now you can see that I say here, these are separate instructions which execute sequentially, which means that this while loop is going to perform its behavior before the print statement ever happens. So it's going to look at the letter and say A, nope, that's not Z. So we're just going to cycle through A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down until finally it gets to Z. And it says, oh, found it, while loop is done. And then it feeds to the next line of code, which in this case is going to be printing that letter. So in a while loop implemented like this, only the letter Z will ever actually print. The while loop will execute its behavior completely and then give control back. So a knowledge check for you, a sample while loop. N is going to be given the initial value of 100, and while n is greater than 10, you will print and then decrement. So I'm going to go ahead and give you just a few seconds to see. Oh, actually, the question here, how many numbers will be printed? So I'm going to give you just a few seconds, pause the video, have a look, see if you can figure out how many numbers are going to be printed. All right, let's go over it. The answer is 90. The numbers 11 through 100 backward. So it's going to be 100, 99, 98, 97, 96, all the way down. It will print 11. It will then say n equals 10, which of course is not greater than 10. We are done executing. Move on. So that's all there is for lesson 5, which was while loops. I'm glad you've made it this far with us. If you have stuck with us all the way from the course introduction in lesson 0, I have excellent news for you, which is that from here on out, we're going to spend very, very little time in our PowerPoint. Almost all of our time from now on is going to be spent in our Ubuntu 64-bit VM, starting with lesson 6, which is the next lesson, Python Basics. And we're going to talk all about how you can create a script, you're going to get to write your first program, and we're going to start spending all of our time in that VM. From here on out, the slides are pretty much going to be used to set our objectives and to perform our summaries and our reviews. So thank you all for sticking with us. Hopefully you've learned something so far. Hopefully you're excited to start coding. I'm very excited to start coding with you. I look forward to having you all back in our next video. As always, I am your instructor, Joe Perry, and thank you for watching this on Cybrary On Demand.